Article out there about Jack Eichel. There's no limit to Eichel's potential. And I'll be honest with you, the headline speaks for itself. I think we can all agree that Jack Eichel has no limit to his potential. I would have to imagine the Sabres feel that way. I have to imagine that right now in the middle of the summer, with some of the moves that Jason Bottrell's made and will continue to make, that potential is only going to grow, and his offensive numbers. But it's not even his offensive numbers. It's not when you say potential. It's not statistics necessarily. It's overall game. I think we saw serious improvements in Jack's two-way game last year. He added more physicality to his game early on. I thought he was better defensively in his own zone. I think we can all agree on that. Offensively, he had a career year in numbers.
Yeah.
So,
but
I think it's pretty obvious.
All that being said, there is so much more room to grow, and that comes with being in a race. And unfortunately, they didn't stay in a race. So I think the last months of the season just leave you wanting more all around, but it's not all around from him. It's all around from everyone. And they couldn't stay in the race long enough to know what it's like to be. How did you lead the show? Talking about, a nick here, stitches, this and that. Like, I'm sorry, and I don't wish that upon anyone, but we all know that that's kind of the look you need to have as you're going into the playoffs and then garnering more throughout the playoffs. And they just didn't find themselves in that situation. And that's, to me, the most frustrating thing. Like, they could have missed the playoffs last year. I wouldn't have been crushed because I didn't expect them to make it last year. But just because of how it ended, I wanted to see him, Jack Eichel, and others like really, really, really grinding and fighting in the final 2 weeks of the year to stay within 3 points, get within 1 point. You know what I mean? And so that there's no limit. It's still an open canvas, really, for him to create everywhere on the ice.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. And I think as you get Dahlin one more year in, you're going to have Montour. You have a better back end to begin with. Period. That helps. That helps. We always talk about getting out of your own zone, which is something the Sabres have struggled with over the years. So you have defensemen now that can help you do that. And I think that will absolutely help translate to his game alone, let alone, the guys on the second and third and fourth lines, if you even want to call them that. But you know what? Duffer has his dry erase board, the Rive board, ready to rock and roll.
Heavy on the erase.
John Vogel going to join us at 11 o'clock, so we'll dive into that. See who Duffer has on Jack's right wing, and see who I might have on Jack's right wing.
And if tune in next week when it'll look completely different.
It'll be totally different, but that's all right. We have all summer to actually iron it out. Speaking of ironing it out, sounds like Casey Middlestad had some comments on NHL.com from the Beauty League, just talking about the team and how they're going to iron things out. New faces, they're all excited about that. New voice. If you didn't get a chance to read it, go read it. It's at NHL.com down on the right side. Pretty standard. I think, you want to know something? He made a comment about a fresh voice, and he's young, and he might be speaking for the pulse of the team when he says that. But you know what? I think different voice. I think Ralph Kruger, sometimes players. And I don't know what Phil Housley was like behind closed doors. I liked Phil Housley. He was great to me. Always very friendly, open conversation. I don't know what he was like behind closed doors. But I see a difference between Phil Housley and Ralph Kruger just with their presentation, how they speak, and the presence. And Ralph just comes in with this, I don't want to, not chest out, but like just, strong personality. Very fair but firm, and you know what I mean? And I think that kind of a voice can go through the locker room in a different way. I mean, Jacques Lemaire, I played for Jacques Lemaire, and everyone can say that he's a genius and everything, and I played for Lindy. And these two guys are very, very similar in their coaching styles, okay? Very close friends. But Lindy did it one way, which a great way, very successful coach. I look back now, I reflect. Great coach. We've had coach Thomas Vanek came on and said he looks back and Lindy was one of the best coaches he ever had. Jacques did it differently, had a different kind of delivery. He had the French accent, had to slow his speaking down and it was just deep voice, you know what I mean? And I sometimes a fresh voice, different I guess attitude, I guess, toward and maybe a little more positive, a different approach. And I don't want to say coddle. Everyone wants to use the word coddle and say millennials and these young kids. But I think that's true with every athlete. I think a lot of the athletes put a front on when a coach was yelling at them and pretended like it didn't affect them. Where now I think kids just are like, they don't like it. And they will stand up against it. And I feel like a guy like Ralph can help these young kids, can maybe, give them the direction. I'm going on a long tangent here about coaching, but I understand what the kid means when he talks about a voice, because you don't think in that 1 year that he sat there, you don't think you hear your teammates talk, right? I'm not saying criticize. I'm just saying you hear their thoughts and you take their thoughts in, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. Look at the Ottawa Senators cab ride. Right? I mean, they were desperate for a fresh voice, apparently. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how long a guy's there. It's either working or it's not. And the players will take to a coach or they won't. So my point is that he was there, 1 year? Other guys were under Phil for 2. Some guys you just know, and you can get the pulse of the team and the vibe. But anyway, they sound excited, and he sounds excited about the new players. One thing I will say is, I hope this kid, and he's being told, I'm sure of it, that I hope he's getting ready for the season, because there's a real competition here. And I'm not saying his job's on the line, but maybe ice time, power play, other spots for him to grow as a player.
I think that's Ralph's, and it should be every coach's, how would you say it? It's the one, I don't like saying holds it over a player, but I think when we sat down with Ralph initially, and I asked him about maybe things that he would do that are perhaps a little unconventional or different, just him mentioning the ice time.
Communicating with players was huge.
Really made me perk up, just because I think if he's bold enough, early enough to shut it down on a top player early in a game for a while, right, to send the message, and then see if that does have that tweak that he's looking for in game. And there's a million other things Ralph will attempt within a game. There's no question he's creative that way, and we look forward to how he employs guys in different situations. But I think based on what you just said about Casey, ice time, and this, I know it's a cliche, but like for him especially, it will not be given. Like, it absolutely has to be earned. And I'm with you. I hope that Casey is on the right path here to be a significant presence and/or difference maker for this team this year.
I say this for every player on the team. I mean, everybody.
But some guys have a bigger scope on them, right?
Yeah, well, for sure.
Spotlight,
and I think it not just what you just said. I'm saying with what I say next, and that is, there's a clip of Ralph Kruger that the Oilers had of him in the locker room. Sean Horkoff. Who, like, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Sean Horkoff and how long he played and the way he played, and other players that were on that team at the time. The way he talked about Sean Horkoff in a meeting in front of the players, who young players like Taylor Hall and all these other guys must have been like, whoa, you're calling out that guy, just talking about comments and conversations they'd had behind closed doors. Bringing to the team about tired of losing and changing the culture. Ryan Whitney was talking about how he chewed out Taylor Hall and guys for body language. So these guys they're all under a microscope. I mean, so yes, I mean, it's all part of it, and that's gonna fall on ice time too. It's gonna all probably result in reflect on their ice time. So.